welcome everybody to a special spotlight edition of Body Slam the Competition tonight. I am Chris Adams, your host, and with me tonight is Ray Filipino. He will be conducting the interview tonight. We have somebody he has researched and brought in here of Zack Monstar, independent wrestler on the independent circuit
Yes.
today. Ray, sounds like a
Yes.
pretty good interview there.
He's also gone by the American Tragedy, the Human Horror Show. He's traveled all over Florida. He's wrestled for companies like CWE, X-Star Wrestling, Real Pro Wrestling. He's wrestled guys like Draven Frost. He's wrestled guys Nathan Vane, Rhino, Headbanger Thrasher from the Headbangers. He's traveled the circuit. He's held many titles down there. As a matter of fact, in about 2 weeks, he has a match against Sami Callihan. And for those of you that don't know the independent name, he also went by Solomon Crow in NXT. So he's got a huge match coming up for that. So he should be calling in a few minutes.
Now, he may actually be calling in now. We have a call on hold. I see. I'm going to go ahead and check the call real quick here. Let you get some more time to explain about him. I'll be back with you in 1 second.
Sure. Yeah, he's a phenomenal guy, phenomenal wrestler. I actually came across him just looking through YouTube stuff. Great guy. He deals with a group called the Madhouse. He deals with a group called the House of Wolves. You look at him, it legit looks like a circus sideshow freak. Makeup, tattoos, piercings, but the Human Horror Show doesn't know justice until you step in that ring because he will tear you apart.
Well, Ray, I got some news for you. That is actually our guest on hold right now. I'm about to bring him on live for us here. So you can go ahead and get things started for us. And just to go ahead and make the announcement here, Ray is taking the lead tonight for the interview. Like I said, it's going to be a great one. I hope you stick around with us. And Ray, here we go. Bringing on Zack Monstar now as we speak. Zack, you are on with us. Thanks for calling in.
No problem, guys. What's up, man?
What's going on, man? As I told the fans, you've gone by many names. Zacky Monstar, the American Tragedy, the Human Horror Show. I told them of some of the people you faced, like Nathan Vane, Rhino, Draven Frost, JB Cool, Joey Mayberry, all the places you've wrestled, X Wrestling, Real Pro Wrestling, CWE. You've held championships all around Florida, man. So I'm guessing what the fans want to know first. Where do you call home right now?
Home for me is Fort Myers, Florida. That's
Okay.
where I live. That's where my family is. That's everything for me right now.
So you're wrestling down there currently with Real Pro?
Yes, actually, a fun fact: I own Real Pro.
Well, that is something that neither I nor the fans may have known, and that's actually really cool.
Quick little story. Real Pro was actually created on a pipe dream of we were wrestling for NEW. That was a company down in South Florida, in Fort Myers actually. And when they ended up going belly up, we got the call right around 5 o'clock saying, "Hey guys, we're really sorry. This is what's going on. NEW is completely gone." And within 15 minutes, Real Pro, which stands for Real Entertainment at Last, was created, developed, and I went out and I bought a ring, and 2 months later, we had our first show.
And when was this around?
This was in June of last year. 2015? Yeah, 2015. We got this call, and that let us know that, NEW was done. And then our very first show was August 4th at the Riverside Community Center down there in Fort Myers as Real Pro.
Well, very cool, very cool. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
That's always a big step, going from an in-ring worker to being the guy behind the scenes. That definitely shows longevity and veteran status.
Totally different worlds, man. I used to just wake up and know that I was getting in the ring and I was going to take some bumps and have a good match. You know what I mean? Now I'm worried about getting up out of bed, and producing a whole show. So it's totally different stress levels.
It's like going from being an actor to being a director.
And to still be able to do both parts, because beforehand, you know what I mean, you didn't have to actually be at the venue until 2 or 3 hours before showtime. Now I got to be there 6 or 7 hours before showtime, make sure that everything gets set up, taken care of, get all that done before the rest of the talent comes in, get them to what they're doing, and then turn around and go, okay, now I gotta go figure out what I'm doing now.
Right. So, well, let's rewind.
Okay.
What actually got you started? Like, who was your influence? Who did you watch? Because I know when I was younger, I saw the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, when he was running around with the Rockers, and I said, I want to be that guy. Okay? And that's what made me want to be a pro wrestler. For you, who was it that you first saw and said, that's what I want to do?
Man, it was honestly Ultimate Warrior. Ultimate Warrior and Macho Man Randy Savage were the two biggest influences growing up. I remember I was about 3 years old, and I'm 27 now. So this is back in like 1991, 92, somewhere in there. And I was about 3 years old, and my mom was just flicking through the channels, and she came across wrestling, and she's always been a huge wrestling fan.
Right.
So when push came to shove, she was like I said, I was 3. I didn't really have like that big of an attention span. But when Ultimate Warrior came out and he had the face paint, he was running down the ring, and it just the whole persona about him, and listening to him talk and how it made no sense, but it made perfect sense, and like the whole nine, I was so captivated by that, and I was like, this is amazing. And growing up, you're like, of course you're gonna like Hulk Hogan, like you're going to, it's right. One of those things like you're a little kid and you're watching wrestling. If you don't know who Hulk Hogan is, like, what are you doing? So
exactly,
it was right around that time, and Hulk Hogan and Ultimate Warrior, Macho Man, all of them were super influential on me loving wrestling and being able to just adapt to it.
So
and
more or less,
I remember
you were the fan of the old school era.
I was. That's what got me in. That's exactly what got me in. You know what I mean? And as time went on, obviously things change. You know what I mean? Your interest in people that you like and the ones that you follow and stuff now. I can't even tell you the last time I was able to actually sit down and watch a WWE event. I can tell you that just earlier today, I watched 4 PWG DVDs. Like, you know what I mean? I love the indie scene nowadays. The talent, the potential, everything is there. And I love seeing guys that are just hungry for it. I think that's the thing that I love the most about this business, is to be able to see the hunger in people.
Right. So now you mentioned Hulk Hogan, Savage, Warrior. Now, as time went on, obviously as a kid, you really didn't get to watch much indie unless it came around. In terms of, the bigger guys, in terms of big guys, who were the ones as time progressed? You mentioned, you start following other people. Who helped you to want to fine-tune what kind of style you wanted to do, or did you really develop that once you started training? And who actually, who was actually the people to start training you?
Okay. The influentialness, the ones that really like got me to the point where I was like, I could do this. I get bashed on it so much, but I can't help it, man. Hardys. The Hardys were a huge influence on me. Edge and Christian, you know what I mean? Like that era, right then and there, when it was them, when it was the Hardys and the Dudleys and Edge and Christian, and they were doing the TLC matches, I was like, this is it. This is what I want. Like, you know what I mean? I was just old enough to understand that it was. I was just old enough to understand that I was like, they can do it and not die. Obviously, I can too, So that was, those were the ones. Jeff Hardy has always been a super awesome influence on me when it came down to really first starting getting my feet wet when it came into really pushing me to do this.
Right.
I was 17. I found NEW. Actually, NEW found me before I was trained professionally and doing the right thing. We all have like that stint where we're like, we're going to be a wrestler. And a lot of kids just go out in the front yard and they beat the crap out of their other friends and they just have a fun time doing it. Well, I didn't want to be that typical stereotype. So what I did is I built a ring. Out of a pool casing and turned around, and we were doing shows, and the whole neighborhood would show up. And next thing you know, we had anywhere from 200 to 300 people outside chilling, watching us beat the crap out of each other in this ring. And some of the videos went up on YouTube and stuff. And one day I just got a phone call that said, "Hey, saw what you did. How would you feel about becoming a professional wrestler? This is who we are. We're doing a show this Saturday. Why don't you come check us out?" So I jumped on it, brought all my friends with me. We went down to the show, talked to them after the show. They gave me the address to where they were training at, and I showed up.
So more or less, they scouted you, and they were the ones to fine-tune you.
Yeah, they found me on a YouTube video spearing a kid off of a barn. Believe it or not, that was like the big like hoorah video that everybody was talking about at the point in time, and that was the one that we just uploaded, and they ended up finding me through that, friend of a friend back in like the MySpace days, which seems like so long ago if you really think about it, but
it really does. Tom was everybody's friend.
Oh yeah, Tom was everybody. That's how everybody found out about everything. Tom was a spy, obviously. But yeah, man, they messaged me, and like I said, I went out to the show, and the next thing you know, they handed me the address, and they were like, "Bring as many people as you want." And it was a really cool little thing that they had. It was nothing super, fancy. It wasn't in like a warehouse or a facility or anything. It was just a bunch of kids who had a passion for this, who were trained professionally, paid for it by the schools, by a guy by the name of Dan, it was Dan something. I can't remember it all. He wasn't my trainer, and that's why I have such a hard time remembering it. But he was trained, brought up in OVW. And he had a really bad back injury at one point. So when he stepped away, he moved down to Florida, started a family and all that. He opened up a training facility.
So now, for those that don't know, OVW was actually the developmental for the WWE. It was basically NXT back in the day before it ever came from it. You had guys like Brock Lesnar, Shelton Benjamin, John Cena, Batista, all come out of OVW.
Yes, you did, and those were such influential guys at that point in time, and it's cool to see the way that OVW was trained, especially having a kind of a front row seat to it. You know what I mean? Having somebody who trained them train you. So there was a couple guys by the name
trained by the same guy.
Yeah,
in an aspect.
Pretty much, and I learned two things that day. One, I was doing everything completely wrong. And two, it hurts a lot less when you're doing it right. But who trained me was there was three gentlemen by the name of Dustin Marler, who went by DB Harrison, who was also a professional wrestler, who owned NEW. Bruce Stokes, who went by the name of Bruce Genesis, who owned NEW, and Craig Stokes. Bruce and Craig were friends, Bruce and Craig were brothers, and Dustin was their friend. All three of them decided that they wanted to open up a wrestling promotion. Craig was fresh out of the Army with a bunch of money, who was like, "We'll do it." So he went out and he bought a ring. And next thing you know, they're doing free shows over in like parking lots at like Victory Lane Cafe and stuff like that. Any restaurant or anybody that would be willing to sit down and watch them. And they trained me, and I went through the ropes for 3 to 4, maybe 5 months before I actually was able to start doing stuff, being a part of the show, run-ins and security and taking bumps and stuff for the guys and doing referee stuff.
Right. Having you work spots more or less until they felt comfortable that you can do the work in the ring without putting your health and or the other, workers on the line.
Exactly. Breaking me of my bad habits that I created, just doing it on my own for so long compared to doing it the safe way. The mechanics were there. The motions were there. It was just, I was like a puppy, and that's the best way that I can explain it. I was so happy to be in the ring and so happy to be a part of it that, I would go a million miles an hour. And the one thing that they teach you is if you ever think you're going too fast, slow down. You know what I mean?
Right.
And if you ever think you're going too slow, slow down even more. It's all about pace
Right.
when you're in that ring. So, here's 6'5", 20-year-old Zack in the ring running around like a puppy. You know what I mean? It wasn't safe in any way, shape, or form. And
I
was
you're
ridiculous.
definitely a big guy, but you
Man,
move like that of someone that's under 6 foot.
I've always wanted to be different, and that was my biggest thing. So when they're like, "Oh, you should be doing choke slams and stuff," and I was just like, "Nah, man, I'm not about it. I'd rather be doing dives and springboards and flips and doing things that you don't normally see big dudes do,
Hey, listen, if the Undertaker can do a dive through the ropes, I'm sure you can do it.
And man, he's 7 feet tall, So
right.
when it came down to it, I'm like, I could do this. Let's do this, and that's exactly what. That was one of the things that they were like, we just don't feel comfortable putting you out there in the show because you're gonna go out there and you're gonna start doing dives and stuff, and we don't want you to hurt yourself. And it finally came down to it, and I was like, listen, you guys are gonna have to bite the bullet at some point. Put me out there,
Right.
trust me, So I was in there when I first started wrestling. It was a very slow process. They worked me through my bumps. They got me going on the footwork and the mechanics of everything. And then their heavyweight champion at the point in time, his name was Richie Paradise. Me and him ended up becoming really good friends. And he looked at me and he told me the greatest advice that I've ever heard when it came down to this business, because it's the one thing that's always stuck, and it said, you get what you put into this. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you could probably hear that a million times in life, but when it comes down to something that you really want, that you're really passionate about, it sticks. And at the point in time, I was a co-owner of a tattoo shop. I was working. I had a healthy relationship. Like I was a normal everyday citizen. And when he told me, you get what you put into this, and I was just like, well, I'm gonna put everything I have into it.
Well, there goes my citizenship.
Pretty much, man. Like there goes me ever being normal, and everything got put on the back burner when it came down to wrestling. I was in that ring for a minimum of 12 hours a day, 5 days a week, whether it be 102 degrees outside or pouring rain. I was in there taking bumps and running the ropes.
So basically, it's one of those. You hear those stories of you're not working. You're doing everything you can to be great at what you're doing. You're not making ends meet. You're literally living off of a loaf of bread a week.
Yeah,
that's,
man,
that's
pretty
more
much.
or less what it was.
That's exactly what it was. Water is your biggest friend when you're doing that. And I remember before I started wrestling, we're going out all the time. I was probably about 300 pounds when I first started wrestling. And that all went away. It all went away from just doing all that and not being able to eat the way that I was. You know what I mean? You
you look
working
at
as
you
a
now, you're what? You're 6'5",
I'm
probably about 250.
Yeah, about that. Last time I think I weighed in, I was probably about 240, somewhere in that 240, 250 range. So I'm definitely in between the two,
Right.
And still 6'5", like still 6'5". I'm trying to work on that. It's just not working fast enough for me.
Well,
but
now you fast forward and you get through all of that. You start getting into your the routines, and you start getting actual matches. And you're still working with NEW, correct?
Yes, sir. That was my very first promotion that I ever stepped foot into. I was with them for about 5 years.
So in the 5 years, what can you tell us? Championships, stories, backstage shenanigans, the biggest names that you've come across, that you've had the privilege of stepping in the ring with, that at any other point in time you would say, this isn't real. This can't be happening. I can't be in the ring with this guy right now. This can't be real.
When I first started, it was like I said, it was a very slow process. Even when I actually started wrestling and doing the shows and the matches and stuff, coolest thing that I've gotten out of it is you mentioned Draven Frost earlier. Draven Frost is actually my best friend. He's my brother. He's actually the godparent to my daughter. He's the godfather to my daughter that I just had November. So,
well, congratulations on that. Kids are a wonderful thing.
Thank you. I had the privilege of meeting Draven, whose real name is Joe, and we it was funny. They kind of were just like, you kind of look like Jeff, and he kind of looks like Matt. And we're going to do this show, and we think it would be good for you two to be together. And we were like, all right, like sure, like why not?
Now, is that where the House of Wolves started, or was that the Madhouse, or does that come later down the line?
That comes later down the line. I didn't actually. Madhouse originally was just me, and once I started to find myself is when the Madhouse was created.
Right. Well, we'll pick up on that once we progress down.
Of course,
to where that actually started.
So we were doing. Me and Joey, we were just working NEW shows, and there was a couple different shows, and the ones that we actually met at, it was this outside promotion which NEW and then worked together, and it was called Omega Pro Wrestling, which isn't the Omega, which is up in North Carolina. This is something that was around in Fort Myers and Florida for a good 2 years before, anybody was like, hey, North Carolina, So they gave us a call, and they were like, hey, do you want to come do the show? We have something for Zack. And they were like, sure, let's go up. So I went up there, and it was my first show away from town. And just nervous, man. You know what I mean? You do your hometown crowd for so long that it just kind of starts to flow with you. And then they're like, okay, we're going to take you out of this pond, and we're going to put you in a bigger pond that nobody knows you in. And it's like, well, damn, crap. What do you do? So I met Joey, and me and him hit it off really cool, and we actually went out there and we worked a really cool tag match where we broke the ring, believe it or not. Tower Doom spot set up, double suplex with a double superplex with the power bomb, and we were doing the suplex to a dude who was heavier than what should have been at the very top, but we were young and we weren't thinking about place setups and or anything like that. So we hit a double suplex on a dude that's 375 pounds with all of our weight coming down, snapped a beam in half. The rest of the show was bunk for that, and we were match 6 of 8. So the last 2 matches were just thrown out.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, I guarantee those fans erupted.
Oh man, dude, it was the greatest feeling ever. It was funny when I first started. They were like, "Oh, you're such a big scary guy. You would make a great heel. You'd make a great bad guy. You'd be that villain." And I was like, all right, I got no problem being scary. Let's do this. And, when I first started, man, I was wearing the tights. I was just wearing the black tights and a t-shirt. I wasn't anything unique or different. I believe the very first name I went by was Zack the Monstar Myers because they didn't like Zack Monstar.
Right.
And I think I came from Corona, California. When I asked them, why am I coming from Corona, California? They go, oh, because that's where the Monster energy drink is factoried at. And I was like, all right, man, it's your circus. I'm your clown. Let's do this. I'll do whatever. I just want to wrestle. You put me in a mask. I don't care. I'm going out there. This is what we're doing. And my music hit. And I remember it because I came out to they picked I had Wait and Bleed, as my entrance from Slipknot, and just that pulse and that just everything about it. And I walked out that curtain, and the crowd just went crazy because they all knew who I was, because they were all family and friends. And that was the first time ever that I was like, maybe I can't be a bad guy. Like, I just can't do it, you know. And it was really cool because when we made it to the back, we had a great little match. It was me versus Bruce, who helped train me, so I felt like super comfortable there. And we made it to the back, and Bruce was like, I had to be a heel out there. I'm sorry. And I was like, no, it's perfectly fine. I didn't know what else to do, so I just kind of worked my, you know what I mean? I didn't know how to change the pace of anything. It was, hey, this is what we're going to do. Hey, let's practice this 9 times. Hey, let's go out there and do it, you know? And it was my first match, so I didn't know how to, like, vibe with the crowd or anything. So the whole time they're cheering, I'm, like, trying to, like, get my heat on these guys and, like, get them to boo me. And they're just like, yeah, Zack. And I'm like, no, you're doing it wrong. Stop. But once that happened, they were just like, Zack's a face. And with more time came more freedom. You know what I mean? And then I started actually finding gear that fit me, and the Myers things dropped.
That helped develop your character and the look and everything.
Yeah, man, the Myers things dropped, and I just went by Zack Monstar, and it turned into Zack Monstar, and then it turned into the American Tragedy Zack Monstar when I started painting my face and, like, doing my thing and having fun with that. And the whole idea behind the character was just, you know, I look different than a lot of people. You know what I mean? Probably not nowadays, but back in the day, you know, 6'5", tattooed white kid, you know, running around with piercings all through his face, and just different than what everybody else is doing at that point in time. You know, everybody else is running around, they're listening to rap, and they're, you know, you always have, like, your groups of people. And I've always wanted to be different. I never wanted to be like that stereotypical kid. So, you know, they're watching Power Rangers, I'm watching wrestling.
Right.
They like blue, I like red. You know, if it was different, I was about it. And
right.
So I looked at the whole roster, and I was like, well, what's everybody doing? You know, like, what's their gimmicks? And I looked at all their stuff, and I was like, man, nobody's different. Nobody's that weird guy. Nobody's that freak. And I was like, I can do this. Everybody was wearing tights. I went with baggy pleather shorts with stars all over them.
Right.
Everybody else is wearing either they're shirtless or you know, they're all taped up from wrist to elbow. I went out and bought an arm sleeve, and I put a shirt on, and I custom made it for myself. You know, they're all doing their hair. I'm just like letting my hair's in a mohawk, and I'm painting my face. You know, it was always about being different, but when it finally happened and I was able to really tone that character in, it just took off because it was just so different. I was in NEW for, like I said, 5 to 6 years. In those 5 to 6 years, I held the NEW Tag Team Championships twice, actually 3 times. Once with somebody who actually became my trainer later on in life, by the name of Scyther. His real name is Steve D'Amico. He was trained up in NYWC up in New York, and he was trained by Mikey Whipwreck, along with Jay Lethal, Trent Beretta, Anthony Nese, you know, all those guys that are on the indie scene now or in WW 205. He was trained by them and with them by Mikey Whipwreck.
So again, you're getting more training in the midst of it with guys. Essentially, it's more of a 6 degrees of separation. You're learning what he learned from these other guys.
Mm-hmm. And that's exactly wrestling is all about, you know, training and learning. If you ever feel like you learned everything that you need to learn, then you need to stop because there's nothing else to learn and progress from. So every day, it's all about learning. You know, you can't look at wrestling back from when it was, you know, in the 1990s and apply it to what you know today because it's a totally different matchup.
Right.
You know, and, you know, that typical body slam suplex isn't going to get you to where, you know, some of the more crazier things would get you. You know, back in the day, a DDT was a finisher. Now it's a cutoff move. You know what I mean? You spoke of Shawn Michaels earlier. A super kick was the 1, 2, 3. It was done.
Right, and now you got everybody. It's in their moveset.
And I'm not even going to front, like, it's in mine. You know, I use it. I used to use it a lot more than what I do nowadays. Because I wanted to be different. So instead of doing a super kick now, I actually do a roundhouse hook kick, like, which is ridiculously scary because I'm so terrified I'm going to kill somebody with it. But
right,
you know, the 6 hours of practice kind of fixes that.
Right.
But like I said, I've always wanted to be different. So
right. Well, right now we're so far we're at the halfway mark. And I want to be able to get, you know, more of your career into this. So let's fast forward. You went to where next? Oh, wait, hold on.
Okay.
You had your 3 tag titles. Did you win anything else down there in terms of titles?
Yeah, I had the tag team titles. One time with Scyther, twice with Joey as Draven Frost, where we started a tag team called Black Flag.
Okay.
And then I was able to break off of that, and I was able to be pushed to the main event picture, where they turned me heel, and I actually took the heavyweight title. I took their heavyweight title, probably about 2 months after us dropping the tag team titles and me turning on Draven. And after I turned on Draven, the American Tragedy thing went completely out the window, and that's when the Human Horror Show was born.
Right, which is now your current persona.
Yes, the Human Horror Show was created. I like to do a lot of work for charity, especially when I have the time. And there's this place down here in Fort Myers called the Calusa Nature Center Planetarium. And it saved me. It saved my life one day. I was in a really dark place in my life where I felt like I couldn't just get out. And every year around Halloween time, they do a haunted walk. And I was in a really dark place, and they gave me a call, and they were, you know, my friends that were working it gave me a call, and they were like, Zach, why don't you come down here and do this? And I was like, hell yeah, like, that sounds fun. And I went down there, and, man, I don't think I left for, like, 2 weeks. Like, I was there. And even after the walk was done, you know what I mean, I was still there. And there they were just like, make a gimmick, show us that you can be scary. And I was like, well, I got this. So, I started painting my face a little bit different, started, like, playing with the fake blood and stuff. And they started calling me the boogeyman out there. I was the devil. And they gave me a chainsaw, and the way that I was moving and stuff, I kind of just took that. And when I made the heel turn, it was just a complete flip from what the American Tragedy was, standing up for all the people who, and like what the Madhouse originally represented was, just being different. It was a home for people who were different and outcasts, who wanted a place to be accepted, and they knew that they could do it under me,
Right.
And next thing you know, it heel turn, I beat the crap out of Draven, and the whole crowd's like, what the hell? NEW Heavyweight Championship, cut the promo. Next thing you know, it's not, Madhouse this, Monstar Militia that. It was Madhouse is dark and it's evil, and the American Tragedy is gone, and now this is the Human Horror Show. He's the Devil's Reject. He is your 666 wonder of the world. He is the devil walking among us, and he is also your NEW Heavyweight Champion.
Wow. That's actually pretty deep. So basically, your charity work in the beginning, I remember you saying that you didn't have it in you to be a heel. You didn't really know how to move like a heel to change pace.
Yeah.
But doing that helped you to develop the movement in ring in terms of how to appear. So it was something different from what you were normally doing.
And that's exactly what it was. You know what I mean? For like I had a really hard time being mean to little kids. You know what I mean? And then this charity haunted walk, you know what I mean, gave me the ability. They were like, hey, here's a chainsaw. Your job is to scare these little kids. And I was like, man, I don't know if I could do that. Like, I don't know if I could whip a chainsaw at a child. And then I did it one time. And I was like, oh, that wasn't so bad, you know? And I did it again. And then I did it again. Next thing I know, I'm doing it to everybody.
Right.
And it just kind of took off, and it taught me where to go and how to move and just how to be different, you know what I mean? Instead of walking, crawl. Instead of showing pain, laugh. You know what I mean? Little stuff that was just like to indicate that, like, okay, he's crazy and not right in the head. And I was like, man, I could take this and I could run with it. And that's exactly what happened, you know?
Right.
The gear switched up, the face paint changed. I stopped doing really cool designs, and I actually started taking fake blood and I put it in a squirt bottle, which is always really funny because it's in a normal squirt bottle, like just a regular, like, lime green squirt bottle. And everybody thinks that it's water when they see it on my bag. So they'll take it and they'll start spraying their hair with it. And then they just look down and they're like, oh my God. And they start freaking out that they're bleeding. And they're like, all right, Zack's gear is not allowed to go anywhere near the rest of our gear. Like, he's grounded. This is done. So now, like, I'm in the offset of, like, away from everybody. Nobody goes near my stuff. I don't go near anybody else's. And the water bottle of blood stays away from everybody.
More or less, it was, excuse me, Mr. Monstar, you're in timeout. Stay away from us.
Yeah, like, you know, nobody put Zack in a corner. No, everybody put Zack in a corner. That's exactly what happened.
So that added to the misfit persona.
Yeah, man, 110. And then, you know, next thing I know, I start getting calls for other companies. Other companies are now taking notice at what I'm doing because the character is now so different than anything and everybody else, you know.
So now where did this bring you to?
This actually got me over to CWE. I got called over to CWE where they liked me, but they didn't really know what I was capable of.
Right.
So they
didn't
put me
know
in the
exactly
pre-show.
what to do with you.
Yeah, they put me in the pre-show, and they were like, well, let's just see what he does. And I went out there, and I worked, and I was so different than their normal cut-in-the-mill stuff. That's where I met Nathan Vane, and Nathan Vane was running the cross-blend gimmick of The Undertaker and Gangrel.
Okay.
He was the harbinger of pain. He was a vampire. He was super confusing. And that's what he was doing, and after I met him. And when I first got to CW, they had no idea what to do with me. Like, they liked me and they wanted me on the card, but they had no idea where to put me in the storyline because of how I looked. And they tried to get me to team up with Nathan, and it just didn't happen. There was just no way, shape, or form. Like, we just didn't mash well together. It was two completely different characters, you know. He was into, like, cult leadership. I was into just different, like, loose cannon, unhinged, scary, like, belongs in an asylum type guy. So to put the two of us together, it didn't really work well. You know, he's trying to play cult leader and trying to get me to follow, and I'm just not doing it because I didn't really feel like that's what my character would do. So that's, you know what I mean? So they turn around and they're like, you know what, like, Zack, what do you want to do? Because that right now I was at a standpoint where I was just in a standstill. And they were like, what do you want to do? What can we do with you? Because I don't have anything for you. And I was like, what do you need? You tell me what you need and I'm going to do it, you know, because that's how I was taught. You know, you be there for the show in any way, shape, or form that you can. So if the show's like, we need help with this area, or, hey, we need to put you in the mid card, or, hey, we just need you to put our heavyweight champion over. No problem. You know what I mean? You just got to tell me what you need. And when they told me that they needed something a little bit more violent, they wanted their hardcore image to go up a little bit. And I was like, okay, no problem. Let me pick the guy, and we'll set it up, and we'll do a chairs match for you.
Right.
They were like, okay. So, me and the guy that I was working that night, he came from NEW with me. He was actually originally from Michigan. And we turned around and we did a little sequence where we had a little 6-minute match where it came down to a count out of us just beating the crap out of each other. And then the next show, it went off, and they put me in a one-on-one match with him, and in a steel chair match, and we beat the holy hell out of each other. And I remember I went for the suicide in that match. I went for a suicide dive, and he was on the apron, and I just hit him off, and he hit the floor, and he grabs the chair, and I go for the suicide dive, and just as I go, he just straight Sabu throws the chair at my face. It hits my head so hard it wraps around my neck. And I'm stuck there between the ropes with this chair around my neck, and he punches the chair, and it literally hit me so hard in the forehead it busted me open. And everybody is like, "This is great, holy shit." And we got to the end of the match, and me being a big dude allows me to do certain things that you normally wouldn't see.
Right.
So when you put me in an 18-by-18 ring, always been a fan of that Shane McMahon, Rob Van Dam coast to coast. I've always been a fan of it, but I'm like, man, it's so overdone by anybody who can jump the distance. I want to be different.
But it's still fun to try to do, knowing that you got to be a certain size in order to make that kind of leap.
Yeah, man, 110%. So I went out there and I started practicing just the jump, just the leap. And I was like, all right, I want to see how it'll feel if I just take the back bump. So I took the back bump and I was like, okay, I can do this. And I was like, but if we're going to do it on a show, we're going to do it completely different. So, and this was the show that I said I was going to do it at. So I had a manager at the point in time, and I just got done hitting Michael Kyrane. I had him in the corner, and I put the chair around the side of his head, and I had my manager hold it. And as I went to the other side of the ring, I just remember standing up on the ropes, and I threw my hands out in the air, and I was just like, CWE, welcome to the Madhouse. And both feet touched that top rope, and I jumped, and I did a full front flip into a drop kick for the coast to coast. And that was what put me really on the map with CWE.
Right.
A flipping coast to coast drop kick from 18 feet apart.
Jesus.
Yeah, man.
That's definitely something different.
And it made the whole crowd just get up and start chanting holy shit. It made all the owners completely look at me in a different light, and they were like, Zack's it. Zack's got it. Like, we need to make sure he's here. And that's what really solidified me being able to come back to CWE on a monthly basis. In that time, Nathan Bain was your national champion at that point in time. And they said, hey, you and Nathan are going to fight. It's going to be for the belt. You just put him over for the crown. We're going to put you over for the title. And Nathan didn't like me. He didn't like me because I wasn't trying to play ball with him. And Nathan doesn't like anybody taking that light off of him. He's been in CWE for so long. He's got the title. He's got the crown. He's about to be pushed for heavyweight champion. He wants everything. So when they're like, hey, this is what's going to happen, I was like, okay. And Nathan's one of them guys that's like, he'll do it, but you're going to earn it. And I remember going out there, and me and him had it was something that I made up. It was called a Madhouse Rules match. And at this point in time, Madhouse is in full effect. It's something that it wasn't just like the idea. It was a whole gimmick. It was a characteristic. It was pretty much a gimmick all in its own. Madhouse had embodied itself into something special that people really got behind. And you go out there and Nathan's out there cutting promos, and all of a sudden you just hear Madhouse is going to kill you, Monstar is going to kill you, this and that. So we went out there and we made the challenge, and it was a Zack versus Nathan Madhouse Rules match. And it was the first time I ever
Now,
got to put thumbtacks.
for those that don't know what a Madhouse Rules match is, can you explain that to them?
Madhouse Rules is pretty much, it is your typical hardcore match, but you can only win by pin or knockout. You cannot win by submission. That was the one thing that I was like, let's be a little bit weird about this. You know what I mean? Madhouse Rules is pretty much all your rules are out the book. Imagine if you can create it and you can imagine it, that's what it was. And at certain points, when we had it and we were able to do it, we would take fencing and we would put fencing up in two of the corners, almost like how a cage match would be.
Right.
Where you would have your cage lifted up, and the fencing was about 12 feet up. And on this fencing that was posted to the cage, there would be a cable that went all the way around the ring. And on this cable, there were weapons hanging from it, miscellaneous things hanging from it, whether it be a title or a kendo stick or a chair. You know what I mean? The cage had barbed wire wrapped onto it. It was your typical gimmicky hardcore match with just a little bit different of a spice to it, you know?
Right.
At one point, there was actually tape. There was tape hanging from one of the things with like 12 light tubes, all cased together. And I remember getting beat down to the point where I just couldn't get back up. And dude turned around and he took the light tubes off, and then he taped the light tubes to the ropes. And he picks me up, and I'm like, I'm about to really feel this. And he grabs me by the head, and he's like, reverse it. Okay. So he goes to throw me into these light tubes that are now taped against the rope. And I just reverse it, and I throw him into it. And I didn't, try to chuck him or anything. And, man, if this dude did not suicide dive himself through these light tubes onto the floor, the crowd's screaming. I'm in the ring, and I'm like, what the hell just happened? It was crazy, man. It was probably the stupidest, one of the stupidest things I've ever been a part of doing, besides any ladder jump that I've done.
Right.
Ladder jumps are horrible. I was like, man, I could do it. They didn't die. You take an ass bomb from.
This was basically the match that led you to the CWE championship.
Yeah, I took the national championship that night, and I was nowhere near the heavyweight title picture. And that was the point in time that Thrasher was in CWE, and he was your CWE heavyweight champion.
The Thrasher that you speak of, that's Headbanger Thrasher, correct?
Yes, that was Headbanger Thrasher. And I was nowhere near that heavyweight title. He was your champion, you know. And I turn around and I'm in the back and I'm just getting ready and I'm painting my face and I'm watching the crowd and I'm watching the shows and I'm interacting with the fans and stuff. And he's in a meeting with the owner whose name was Chris. And they're talking about, and Thrasher was about to leave. He was on his way out of CWE because of some other stuff that he had going on. So he was going to drop the belt. And they brought up two people. Giovanni being one of them, who was actually in NEW with me, who was a very fit, athletic kid, but he only stood about 5'6".
Right.
And Thrasher being from that mentality of the olden days where it's like, this is your heavyweight champion, he has to be somebody that is able to carry the belt, not as big as the belt, you know?
Right.
And so Giovanni was your number one contender at the point in time. And then you had Nathan Vane, who had just won the crown. And the crown, when CWE, was a representation of you can challenge. It was kind of like their version of Money in the Bank. You could challenge for the title at any point, at any time. You know? So we're sitting there and I'm listening to the crowd and I'm talking with everybody, and then they're talking to Thrasher. And I don't really know what's going on, but I noticed that Thrasher looks over at me and he starts pointing. And I'm like, oh no, I'm in trouble I've pissed off Thrasher. Like,
Right. And it's funny because I've talked to Glenn, and he's a very nice guy. Very nice.
I was gonna start calling him Glenn, but I wasn't 100% sure if you would know who I was talking about. But you're extremely knowledgeable, and I give you 110% credit. So I thought that Glenn was mad at me for something that I did.
Right.
And because I didn't know to break rules. You know what I mean? They're like, hey, don't do this. And I'm like, okay. And then, like, halfway through the match, I'm like, I'm going to do this. That thing that you told us not to do, I'm going to do it because I know it's going to go over.
Right.
And so Glenn's pointing at me, and then he's like, Zack, come here. So I'm like, oh, no. I'm like, crap. And I'm like, as I'm walking, I'm like doing like that walk of shame where my head's down. I'm like, I'm in so much trouble. Like,
I'm about to get shit canned now.
Like, I'm so fired. And then I'm like, with each walking step, I'm like, what did I do? Like, what did I do here? Like, what crap?
Right.
Did I, And I walk over, and Glenn turns around, and he puts his hand around my neck, around the back side of it, and he goes, this is it. This is who I'm doing it. And I was like, I just want to point out, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do it for whatever it is that I did, but it won't happen again. Like, and he was like, you're not in trouble. And I'm like, oh, thank God. So, and Chris is like, he just won the national. He's nowhere near the title picture. And he was like, we're going to make him towards the title picture. He said, Zack is the only person on this card that understands
and then that
was
the decision, and he basically, it was set up for him to drop the belt to you.
Yeah, and that was it. That was the one where he was just like, Zack is the only one that gets it. Zack is the only one that I can hear when I'm in that bathroom in the other side of the arena. I can hear him screaming and yelling with this crowd. He gets it. He understands it. His work is there. His gimmick's there. Zack's the one I'm dropping the title to. And
so
Chris being
I was going to say, all of this culminated to you officially becoming a CWE champion.
Hands down. Me and Glenn went out there, and we did our thing, and we had our match or whatever, and I ended up catching the 1-2-3 on Thrasher. And later on that night, same night actually, we were a month away from their big WrestleMania type anniversary show. And at the end of the night, I'm raising the pin Thrasher. We shake. He's walking to the back. I'm with the crowd, and the GM walks out, and he goes, Zack, it was a huge win. And even though it wasn't set up for you, we have your very first title defense. And they pointed to the screen, and there it was, and black and white in full color, your former ECW WWE superstar Rhino for the now CWE heavyweight champion, Zack Monstar.
Wow. That's amazing. That is definitely awesome.
Talk about heart in your throat.
Well, talking about that, I just realized we have hit the 5-minute mark. And, Zack, the stories are phenomenal. And first of all, I want to know, would you love to come back and at some point and pick up from where you left off?
Yes, I would absolutely love that. I was going to say, I'm so sorry that I talk so much. This is my first time actually doing a podcast, so I'm just like super excited.
You don't understand. I've been getting word as I'm talking to you, that from our producer that it's great. The stories, everything, it's great, and I would love to have you back to continue. I just feel bad we didn't have enough time, but I wanted to do this for you. I understand that Tuesday, April 4th, you have a Real Pro show coming up. I want to give you an opportunity to plug that and say what you got to say before we got to let you go for the night, man.
Awesome, man. I just want to, first and foremost, say thank you guys so much for allowing me to do this and just, having me in mind when it came down to doing your podcast. It means a lot to me. You know what I mean? As far as April 4th goes, I'm super excited about it. This is my first Real Pro show where I've actually been able to bring in talent. And I actually got really lucky with Callahan because, WrestleMania is in Orlando this year. So it's going to be me versus Sami Callihan for the Real Pro Top Crown title, which is your heavyweight title, in the main event for that night, which is going to be huge. I'm so stoked about it. My brother Joey, my best friend Joey Draven Frost, will be facing Dave Christ. For those of you who don't know who Dave Christ is, definitely take the time to look him up. Dude has one of the prettiest cutters I have ever seen in professional wrestling.
PWG, CZW, he's been around, man. He's definitely an indie
sir,
guy.
he has. He just debuted on PWG, and I was so happy for him. I was talking to him that day about it. And then my brother, Deacon Star, he goes by Johnny Christ. You know, we do the radio show together and stuff like that. He's actually facing Shannon Moore. So this is just a huge stacked out card on top of it. And like I said, super lucky and super humbling to be able to do this for real that night. And flat out, like, we're also going to be live streaming it. We're going to make sure that everybody's able to see it, pick up the DVD, stuff like that. But it's April 4th at the Riverside Community Center. Bell time's at 7 o'clock. And it's just going to be a good night. It's going to be a family filled night, and it's going to be action packed. This is probably going to be that underlining testament of where I wanted to be in my career, and I get to do it with somebody that once I actually became a wrestler and started hearing the indie names, he was the first one that I was like, that's the one I want to do this with. And I almost had the opportunity to do it last year, and it fell through. So this time around, I just picked it up and I ran with it, and it worked.
I'll tell you what, I've seen him with Force One and CZW up here in New Jersey, and you're gonna have a match on your hands, sir. But on that note, thank you. I wish you the best of luck in your match. And thank you so much. The honor, was all ours for having you. We're honored to have you. And again,
awesome,
we'll be talking soon. And again, we would love to have you back on to pick up where you left off with Rhino and progressing into X Wrestling and Real Pro. And I remember you telling me a story of there was a shot for NXT. We would love to hear about that. And
we got the the NXT thing is something that we didn't even get to talk about, and the tours over to Australia and Europe. You know what I mean? I've been able to do some really cool stuff with this, and I'd love to be able to tell those stories. Whenever you are ready to have me back, man, I'm one phone call away and one message away.
All right, brother Zack. Again, ladies and gentlemen, Zacky Monstar.
You guys, thank you so much. I appreciate everything.
Thank you, man.
Have a good night, guys.
You too. Bye-bye.
That was pretty cool right there. Definitely a lot of great stories. I look forward to hearing the rest of it when he comes back on, especially the NXT tryout.
I definitely agree. I did not realize myself that how far his indie career has started and has gone.
Well,
and it's going to be great to be able to do a part 2 on him.
Definitely. Well, we're down to 5 seconds where the show's going to cut us off, Ray. So we're going to pick up next time soon. We hope everybody enjoyed the interview. Tune in to us next time. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.